Good morning, colleagues. Welcome everybody to the meeting. And the time now is 30 minutes after 9. Sia, are we ready to go?
Yes, Chair, we are. Morning.
Okay, thank you. The department, Mr. Fraser and your team, are you here?
Good morning, Honorable Chair. We are here and Honorable Member. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Maybe before we start, just to remind you, because I had not forgotten, so you have a team of 5. Just to remind you that the last time I did make the point that I want us to be in one room, just as you are doing there. I want us to be in one room physically in Parliament. We're having this meeting virtual. I've not forgotten about that. So see, I'm going to have to work on that. It's not a big team, so it's better to be in one space and deal with all of these issues to avoid echoes and other problems. But we'll continue today. Thank you very much for being ready and your team, and welcome members, everybody else who's joining the meeting. We're going to go straight into the meeting. I have no apology that I have received. And I'm going to ask that I've not seen the Deputy Minister. Is the Deputy Minister in?
If you mean this one, Chairperson, I'm in. Shall we?
Thank you very much, DM. I'm going to ask you to lead your team, and we hear from you, and then you can give over to your team when you're done with your remarks.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'll do accordingly. You can just bear with me for a half a second.
Okay, that's okay.
As I try to, yes. Okay. Chairperson, honorable members, ladies and gentlemen, allow me once more to appreciate the opportunity provided to us to present to the members the work of the department. In this instance, we have been requested to appraise the members on the progress regarding the release of offenders on parole to address 2020-2021 COVID-19 and the capacity of community corrections to manage the additional numbers into their system as a result. In response to the President of the Republic, His Excellency Cyril Ramaphosa's declaration of a national state of disaster, in terms of the National Disaster Management Act, the department developed and implemented a response strategy that entails detection, prevention, containment, treatment, and recovery. Despite these measures put in place by the department, on the whole, we continue to be confronted by the realities of logistical constraints as we endeavor to navigate and gravitate the department towards the protocols of the new normal. As members would recall, in 2019, a special remission project was undertaken by the department, prompted by the overburdened correctional services system, owing to the perennial problem of overcrowding in our centers. At the time, on average, our centers were overpopulated by 37%. These figures were sourced from the 2018-2019 reports. A number of individual centers were overpopulated by 100%. In the wake of our constitutional imperatives, in accordance with Section 35(2) of the Bill of Rights, it was incumbent on us as government to act. Section 35(2) states that offenders have the right to conditions of detention that are consistent with human dignity, including at least exercise and the provision at state expense of adequate accommodation, nutrition, reading material, and medical treatment. It is now a matter of record that the President granted all sentenced offenders a special remission of 12 months, excluding offenders sentenced for gender-based offenses and violent crimes. Thus far, from the 17,922 qualifying to be considered up to the 7th of May 2021, a total of 14,003 has been placed out on parole. The department will share how they have fared from the perspective of community corrections, this being a novelty for the department. Mr. Chairperson, one might ask, why are we talking about 17,922 when we were given to understand that the total number of sentenced offenders qualifying for release under this dispensation was 19,000. It turned out, upon further verification, that the actual number qualifying was 18,544. But then, because other offenders that had been identified to qualify picked up further charges, hence the drop of qualifying cases to 17,922. With the declaration of the national state of disaster by the President, occasioned by the advent of COVID-19, these developments led to the suspension of various activities within our community corrections for the period of the national state of disaster from the date of publication of the regulations. The department duly developed standard operating procedures in line with the Department of Health guidelines in order to mitigate COVID-19 infection within the department. As such, community corrections also developed a specific mitigation plan to prevent the spread of the virus in the monitoring and supervision environment. So the purpose for today's presentation is for the department to delve into the detail and appraise the honorable members on the modalities of this process and how far we have come. Secondly, Chairperson, there has been an unfortunate trend in the public domain, particularly on social media platforms, of visuals of incidents of sexual conduct between inmates and officials that have compromised the standing of the department in the eyes of the public. Whilst this has been embarrassing, to say the least, it is also an opportunity for the department to further interrogate its systems, security detail, the code of conduct, and ethical behavior within the department. While some of these alleged incidents have proven to be authentic, it remains true that some of them are certainly from the ranks of the department, and as such, we have had to take appropriate action. Even though such incidences are few and far between, the damage in terms of reputation has been done, and my view is that one incident is one too many. I shall leave the detail and the circumstances of each case to the departmental officials to bring the members on board. Suffice to say, Chairperson, that the much publicized video of the female official and the male offender engaging in sexual intercourse had been taken at Ngome Correctional Facility in KwaZulu-Natal. The outcome of that investigation was that 2 correctional officials were summarily dismissed. The correctional official in the video and a colleague who allowed her office to be used for sexual acts were both dismissed. The sanctions were implemented following a disciplinary process. The inmate involved has been reclassified into maximum category and subsequently moved to another facility and has lost his privileges. He's serving a life sentence. Another incident involved a female official engaged in sexual conduct with a male offender in the LMN region. That official, after following a disciplinary inquiry, has also been dismissed. Therefore, Chairperson, I will now hand over to the department officials to give more details through their presentations on these 2 aspects of today's proceedings. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, DM. I'm now going to call the National Commissioner, Mr. Fraser, to lead your team.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Members, Honorable Deputy Minister. Chairperson, we want to thank you for giving this opportunity to present to yourself. I have two of my colleagues that will be doing the presentation. First and foremost, we would have CDC Community Corrections that will do the presentation on the parole system and capacity, and then we'll have CDC HR. She's just recently been appointed in HR. CDC HR will then present, and then we'll field the questions, Chairperson. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Go ahead, CDC Community Corrections. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner. Good morning, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Members, and Honorable Minister. I'm going to go to the presentation on the progress regarding the release of offenders on parole to address COVID-19 and the capacity of community corrections to manage the additional numbers into our system. So my presentation will focus on the purpose of the presentation, will also be a bit of the background in terms of the COVID-19 special parole dispensation, the mandate of community correction, and in terms of capacity, we'll look at the caseload, the community corrections capacity, community corrections facilities, and the DCF interventions that we've already taken on, and challenges and mitigations, and that will be the conclusion of my presentation. As indicated in terms of the purpose of the presentation is to provide progress.
Before you proceed here, we don't see the presentation. I don't see it. Can you just light it? Sorry. Can the presentation be flighted, Sitle? I don't even see him here now. He's lost.
Sorry, Chair, he's trying to connect. What's up? Apologies, Chair, she's trying to.
Bonani, please allow me to share.
Sia, can you share the screen with the presenter? Because I did hear you fixing this before we started, and Sitle said he was ready. So don't know what happened.
Okay, maybe I must just indicate that we're having connectivity problems in Pretoria. So I just want to indicate that they are connected. So apologize. I think Sitle is now connecting. Apologies, Chair.
Fine. Let's go. Thank you. I'm aware of the connectivity problems in Pretoria. That's why that decision where I need to see you in front of me when I check. This just helps us to fast track that. Go ahead, CDC. I think we can now see your presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. In terms of the background, the background. In terms of the background On the 15th of March 2020, the President of the Republic of South Africa, His Excellency Mr. Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa, announced that the National State of Disaster in terms of the National Disaster Management Act has been declared owing to the magnitude and severity of the COVID-19. The department therefore developed and implemented a response strategy which entails prevention, containment, treatment, and recovery. The department continues to be confronted with challenges of maintaining physical distancing in its facilities due to overcrowding. So we have specific standard operating procedures that have been developed, and we are utilizing that together with other SOPs, that is the standard operating procedures and guidelines from the Department of Health, National Institute of Communicable Diseases, Center of Disease Control, and the World Health Organization. So these standard operating procedures provide guidance on mitigation strategies that must be implemented to prevent, detect, and respond to COVID-19 in DCS. So they are reviewed as required to incorporate new developments on the COVID-19 pandemic. Pursuant to the announcement by the President of a national state of disaster, Regulations number 431007 of the disaster management, which led to the suspension of various activities during lockdown restrictions within correctional centers and community corrections for the period of national state of disaster from the date of publication of the regulations. And in managing the spread of the COVID-19, the DCS developed standard operating procedures in line with the Department of Health to mitigate COVID-19 infection in the department. And as such, community corrections also developed a specific mitigation plan to prevent the spread of the virus in the monitoring and supervision environment. And in addressing, managing, and combating the spread of the COVID-19 virus in correctional centers, the department recommended to the President to place selected categories of low-risk sentence offenders on parole to continue to serve their sentences in the system of community corrections. The special parole dispensation was then announced by the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services at a media briefing held in Pretoria on the 8th of May 2020. The announcement was done after the President authorized the consideration and placement on parole of certain categories of sentenced offenders who are or would have been incarcerated on 27 April 2020, subject to such conditions as may be approved by the Correctional Supervision and Parole Board. Prior to the special parole dispensation, there were qualifications that were given to ensure that our offenders will be placed on parole based on the qualification criteria. In terms of the qualification, we had the sentenced offender who has or will reach the minimum detention period within a period of 60 months from the 27 April 2020 will qualify for the special parole dispensation. And in terms of this qualification, on the column there, we've indicated those offenders that were not going to qualify for parole dispensation. I won't go through everything on the list, Honorable Chairperson. The first one just indicated the life sexual offenses, murder and attempted murder. So the list is provided on the presentation. I won't go through the entire list. Within our facilities, we also had processes to be undertaken prior consideration for offenders qualifying for parole and special parole. Offenders are expected to participate in rehabilitation programs, for example, pre-release programs, which have also been made compulsory prior release back into the community. So offenders were expected to participate participate in the pre-release program. The other issue is in terms of availability of support system. We had to check and confirm that our offenders do have the family to support them and the family where they can go back to. The other criteria is in terms of participation in the restorative justice process, because as DCS, we have indicated that we will continue to place victims at the center of our rehabilitation and reintegration program. So when announcing the special parole dispensation on 8th of May 2020, the Minister also emphasized that treatment of offenders will commence after all the processes, including victim-offender dialogue, have accordingly unfolded. All parole considerations should include victim participation, and our Correctional Supervision and Parole Board, and also our National Council on Correctional Services, requires that our restorative justice program be conducted prior to placing offenders on parole. So based on that restorative justice program, it has gained momentum over the past years, and it has yielded good results in relation to tracing and preparation of victims and offenders to participate in the program. And the continued positive results have shown the need to have more and permanent structure of social auxiliary workers within our system to assist in victim involvement and to assist in victim involvement in the program. With regard to COVID-19 special parole dispensation, the implementation of the project commenced on the 20th of May 2020 and completed on the 28th of October 2020. So offenders who were to benefit from special parole dispensation were to be placed out as from the 20th May in controllable groups as per identified categories and sentence groups. The department projected a total of approximately 19,000 offenders who committed non-violent crimes to benefit from the special parole dispensation. But after we have projected that 19,000, the regions were provided with the list to verify and purify those numbers. So this resulted in a purified total figure of 18,544, and other offenders that have been identified to qualify picked up further charges, hence the drop of qualifying cases to 17,922. The table below reflects the total number of qualifying cases against the number released as at April 2021. So I'll just indicate the national one. We can see the region in terms of the region. So we have those that qualified is 17,922, and the releases as on April 2021 is 13,989. So from the releases of 29 April of 13,989, we had additional releases after the close-up date of the project, and the number of offenders remaining to benefit from the special parole dispensation currently is 3,933 as at 29 April 2021. But as the Honorable Deputy Minister indicated, the total releases is 14,003. That is the information.
No, where you bought the bamboo from us. They have this thing.
I don't think that. You know who that is. Continue this. I don't know who this person who will soon be removed. Continue.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Chairperson. So I'm saying the total releases as at the 7th of May is 14,003. So those are the total releases as at the 7th of May. But on the presentation, we indicated up until the 29th of April, which is that 13,989. With regard to community corrections, we are saying that in terms of the mandate of community corrections, is responsible for the facilitation of acceptance and social reintegration of offenders into their respective communities and the creation of conducive environment for the successful reintegration of offenders. Community corrections refers to all non-custodial measures and forms of supervision applicable to persons who are subject to such measures and supervision in the community and who are under the control of the department. So based on these two tables, the first table indicates the caseload of parolees and probationers, excluding the ATPs awaiting trial persons who did not qualify for the special parole dispensation. The first table is on its May 2020 implementation of the special parole dispensation. So we had a total number of 53,899 at the end of May 2020, and at the end of March 2021, the caseload within community corrections is at 6,534. Next slide. Okay, the next slide. Okay, thank you. The following table indicates the impact of COVID-19 special parole dispensation on community corrections caseload from May 2020, as indicated in the previous slide. So here we are just trying to show the difference to say from May 2020 to 31st March 2021, the difference in terms of the numbers, our caseload increased with 6,238. So the total number of releases within community corrections is at 28,461. So that's the total number of releases within community corrections. Yeah, thank you. So on this slide, we are talking about making a comparison of the 5-year period to say from 2016, 2017 up until 2021. We are comparing over the 5-year period to say during 2019-20, the total number of offenders within community corrections were less as compared to the previous financial years. As you can see from the table, 2019-2020, the average caseload is at 55,550, and at the end of 2020-2021, we are at 61,425. So while the special remission of sentence has reduced the population in community corrections from 71,000 to 55,000, the COVID special parole dispensation has subsequently increased the system of community corrections. So I've already indicated that the caseload increased during this period to around 61,000, noting also that there were releases and parole revocations at the same category during this period. And despite the increase in our average caseload, we have been performing on the percentage of parolees and probationers without variations over the previous financial years. So for the past 3 years, GCS nationally has recorded a 99% success rate of parolees and probationers who complied with conditions set. And those who violated their conditions constituted 1%, and some of them committed serious and violent crimes. As we can see on the slide, that indicates that as at April 2021, a total of 126 inmates have been readmitted. The 126 reoffenders or alleged reoffenders represent 0.9% of the 13,989 that you have indicated earlier that they were released as at 29 April 2021. So out of the 126, we have indicated in terms of the region and also the types of crimes committed. There are different types of crimes committed. We do have the economic crimes, also the violent crimes that were committed. So there are incidences of parolees committing serious offences after returning to their committees. There are also some offenders who, even after serving sentences of incarceration, repeatedly fail to desist from crime and reintegrate into the community as law-abiding citizens. On the next slide, we are presenting community corrections capacity in terms of the caseload. Our post-establishment for community corrections is at 2105. The field is at 1,800, and we also have vacancies of 219. So the table just shows the staff establishment of community corrections at head office and within the region. So the reason for that high vacancy is because posts were not filled due to budget cuts, and most of our colleagues within community corrections are also going on pension, and others is due to natural attrition. So that's the reason that we are having that high vacancy rate, because after leaving to pension and those that we lost due to natural attrition, we did not replace due to budget cuts. Then on the right-hand side, we are presenting the budget allocation for 21-22. So within community corrections, we have 3 sub-programs, which is supervision, community reintegration, and office accommodation. So the above table just shows an allocation of budget for the program, which is earmarked for compensation of employees because of the labor-intensive nature of the work involved in this program. The program also provides for the continuing supervision and support of parolees, which is integral to community safety and reduce reoffending. The other focus is also in terms of restorative justice program, whereby we conduct victim offender dialogues and victim offender mediation. So in terms of our staff establishment, we also have social auxiliary workers that we haven't included in the post-establishment. I'll discuss that on a later slide. So in terms of our facilities, we have 218 community corrections offices nationally. Western Cape, we have 26, Eastern Cape 40, KZN 36, Gauteng 13, LMN 16, and Free State Northern Cape 37. We also have private leases, and there are 134 private leases. We have established service points and satellite points nationally in order to bring community corrections services closer to the communities where the offenders are residing, especially in rural and remote areas. And as a department, we have also established the service points with partnerships with stakeholders, just to ensure that our stakeholders, they do participate in our rehabilitation and reintegration programs. We have partnered with non-profit organizations and established halfway houses that are managed by the NPOs. And these halfway houses are assisting in the reintegration of offenders who are due for parole, placement, and have no monitorable addresses and support systems. So currently, in terms of the halfway houses, we do have 7 halfway houses in the region. Western Cape, we do have 3 halfway houses, Gauteng 1, Free State Northern Cape 1, LMN 1, KZN 1. Next slide. And in terms of the interventions that we did from the department, we have developed the service delivery model, and it has been approved in 2019 to align the DCF in a more comprehensive and integrated operational framework. DCS is center-centric to ensure service delivery as a theater of operations. Theater of operations meaning the regions and also management areas and correctional centers, and centers of excellence referring to the head office. We are responsible to implement the district development model, and it has been developed in order to align the management areas of the DCS to the district development delivery for contribution towards economic empowerment of communities. So the focus of our district development model is upon service delivery at the district level, with community development being identified as a top priority. We collaborate with other government institutions on infrastructure projects and programs that align to the DDM. So this is mainly to ensure that management areas are well equipped to play a role in rebuilding communities through procurement functions, supporting local businesses, job creation, and building strong relationships and community involvement. With regards to collaboration with NPOs, we have quite a number of NPOs that we do have memorandum of understanding with. I've already indicated the halfway houses that we have established in partnership with NPOs to place our offenders. The other issue is in terms of partnership with stakeholders, whereby a memorandum of understanding has been signed. We have partnered with institutions of higher learning. We have also formalized partnerships with various stakeholders as indicated, and also with government departments for successful reintegration of parolees and probationers. DCS also participates in the following clusters to ensure maximum collaboration is attained from departments in the cluster system, to assist with enhancing the service delivery mandate of DCS by either leveraging of shared resources or introducing efficiencies and eliminating blockages in the corrections and broader societal systems. So in the table, we have just indicated some of those clusters that we are participating in, and also the subcommittees. On the next slide, we have the department is currently in a process to revise the departmental structure, and the implementation of the proposed community correction structure will contribute towards delivery on the current medium-term strategic framework and the strategic plan 2020 to 2025 and beyond. In terms of professionalizing of community corrections, we need to professionalize community corrections to ensure that there is specialized training for social reintegration officials and supervision officials and social workers. So the following activities that are currently underway is that we are currently working with SASITA in terms of developing qualifications of officials within community corrections. So currently the focus is on developing qualifications for the head of community corrections. We are also involved with the court in terms of developing a training manual specifically for court officials, wherein they are trained on court procedures. In terms of the social workers, we are currently working with the South African Council of Social Service Professions, and also DSD, Department of Social Development, as the primary core department in regulating the functions of the profession. We want to standardize the work of social workers within community corrections so that their focus will be more on community development model. So that's the current processes that we are busy with in terms of social workers. And in terms of social auxiliary workers, social auxiliary workers are not within our structures. We have contracted them to assist us in tracing the victims of crime and prepare them for their participation in restorative justice. The social auxiliary workers, they have contributed immensely towards the achievement of the restorative justice indicators, for the previous financial years, except in 2020, 2021, where the COVID-19 pandemic and lockdown restrictions had a negative impact on the performance of our indicators on both participation of victims and participation of offenders in restorative justice programs. For the current financial year, in terms of empowering victims, we have included the indicator on facilitating economic opportunities for the victims, and this will be on the focus will be on the victims who participated on restorative justice already. So we are going to use that as our current baseline. We are working with the Department of Social Development and other relevant stakeholders to identify also the social economic needs of our victims, such as the access to social grants, physiological and psychological counseling, access to education, and the possibility of employment. So this will help to change the current societal perception that the victims of crime are not being taken care of. Whilst we are still on the social auxiliary workers, we have submitted the request for funding to the President. We have requested the funding on presidential employment stimulus so that they can fund us to appoint contract social auxiliary workers, because their contracts will be expiring towards the end of this year. We already have one that has expired, and by December, all contracts will have expired. In terms of marketing of DCS programs, our marketing efforts of the COVID-19 special parole dispensation were successfully done through visual meetings, distribution of information pamphlets and radio talks nationally, and various stakeholders were consulted immediately after the pronouncement by the President and the Minister, including, among others, families of parolees and probationers, and South African Police Service and other stakeholders. However, more still need to be done to get communities to be involved in the monitoring, rehabilitation, and reintegration of parolees and probationers to ensure a smooth reintegration process. In terms of the next intervention, we have developed the social reintegration framework, which has been approved by the end of March 2021, and the framework will assist to reposition the system of community corrections within the department, the criminal justice system, and the community at large. So in terms of the social reintegration framework, our focus is that preparation for reintegration should commence before the offender is placed on parole or correctional supervision, and after release, interventions should support their transition from the correctional center to the community and continue until successfully reintegrated. So the following key focus areas are some of few that we have identified, but there are also others that we haven't included in the presentation. So the first one being the promotion of alternative sentencing, which is the non-custodial sentences. We are saying community corrections presents the most obvious alternative to incarceration, and the effective utilization of community-based sentences as alternatives to incarceration and the placement option would contribute significantly towards reducing the number of accused detainees in correctional centers as awaiting trial and afforded probationers with an opportunity to serve sentences within the community. So this will be done in collaboration with relevant stakeholders like the justice and other relevant stakeholders. We also need to ensure that there is appropriate organizational structure. As I've already indicated earlier on, that we have a proposed community corrections structure, and my colleague here will also emphasize more in terms of the human resources within the department. We need to professionalize social reintegration. I have indicated in terms of professionalizing social reintegration that we'll have training on our reintegration officials, social workers, specifically for community correction. And the other one is also in terms of provision of rehabilitation and reintegration services or programs to address issues that contributed to offending. So what we are saying is that additional to physical supervision of offenders under the system of community corrections, psychosocial support programs will be continued. In terms of the service delivery modes within community corrections, we also need to look at other options in terms of supervision within monitoring and supervision within community corrections, and implementation of district development model, and also forming or establishing strategic partnerships with relevant stakeholders. With regard to the challenges and mitigation, the first challenge that we have identified within the community correction space is in terms of availability of resources, that is human capital, the ratio of offender to community corrections officials. So we are still having a challenge with regard to that, and budget, and also suitable vehicles for monitoring and supervision. So we have insufficient allocation of funding for conducive transport to conduct physical monitoring, especially in rural and mountainous areas. So in terms of mitigation, as a department, we are currently working on the realignment of the organizational structure. We are going to recruit and appoint more social workers and psychologists. We are also going to prioritize the appointment of social auxiliary workers. And in terms of absorption of learners, we are also going to ensure that learners are also absorbed within community corrections offices, and we'll also engage with relevant stakeholders in order to share resources and ensure community involvement. We will be liaising with municipalities so that we can also share their resources in terms of social workers assisting us in communities. The next challenge is in terms of the lack of ICT infrastructure at some community corrections offices, whereby there is insufficient computers, and capturing of information requires extensive driving, which contributes to delay in processing information. So on this one, we will ensure that there is cabling of community corrections offices. As indicated earlier on, that we do have private leases. So in those private leases, community corrections offices, we are not going to cable. The other mitigation is in terms of implementing like utilization of Wi-Fi. The third one is that most of community corrections offices are leased, and we are currently engaging Public Works Department on the process of reviewing lease agreements. We have also engaged municipalities some of the municipalities to identify and utilize some of the unused buildings within communities. And in terms of the buildings that are not in good condition, we will use offender labor to refurbish some of those buildings to accommodate community corrections. The next challenge is in terms of the manual process. To say within community corrections, we are not using technology to monitor our offenders currently. So what we will be doing is that we are going to explore the use of drones within our space. And in terms of the electronic monitoring system, we are currently working on the new system that is implemented. And the project kicked off from February 2021, and it will end at the end of the 1st March 2022. So the physical monitoring of offenders under the system of community corrections is a human resource intensive task, and it is costly. So we previously implemented the electronic monitoring system, and the contract was awarded for the period of 5 years, from July 2014 to June 2019. And the department effectively terminated the electronic monitoring contract on the 30th of June after legal consultation. So that's the reason that we are now coming up with the new electronic monitoring system. So we are doing the in terms of developing this new electronic monitoring system, we are currently working with CSIR, that is the Council on Scientific and Industrial Research. So the CSIR, together with the department, will develop an electronic monitoring system that takes into account the South African operational environment, that is legislation, socio-economic factors, and cost of ownership by the department, network infrastructure, and its footprint, just to mention a few. And we are currently developing the business case together with the CSIR. In terms of concluding, it should be highlighted that the 2020 COVID-19 special parole dispensation was successfully implemented with lessons learned. The marketing efforts of the COVID-19 special parole dispensation were successfully done through virtual meetings, distribution of information pamphlets, and radio talks nationally. However, as indicated earlier on, we still need to do more and ensure that our communities are involved in the reintegration process. Community correction creates a conducive environment for the reintegration of parolees and probation through supervision, monitoring, and rehabilitation, and ensure that parolees and probationers comply with conditions of parole. So the department ensured that probationers and parolees complied with their set conditions despite an increase in the caseload of probationers and parolees during the implementation of the COVID-19 special parole dispensation. Restorative justice processes will be implemented with some restrictions in line with COVID-19 regulations to ensure the participation of victims and offenders. Parole boards to continue ensuring victim participation prior considering offenders for parole, and communities will also be prepared for the release of parolees and probationers in order to ensure effective reintegration and reduce reoffending. Fully capacitated community corrections will alleviate overcrowding within our correctional centers. As we have indicated, that community corrections has become a core component of the South African criminal justice system, as it provides a useful and less costly alternative to incarceration. We will continue partnership with all relevant stakeholders. We'll also ensure community involvement in our reintegration of parolees and probationers, and the implementation of the approved social reintegration framework will contribute towards promoting corrections as a social responsibility. Thank you very much, Chairperson. That's the end of my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. You want to say something?
Thank you, Chair. We just wanted to determine if we could do the second presentation also, Chair.
Can we just deal with this first? And let me check with the members. Honorable Self?
Yes, I'm happy if they do the other presentation first. Right.
Okay. They just offload everything. Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner, let's do the second one. I gave you more time on the first one. It was very important. I know for the HR person who's going to deal with this to be a first, so I won't put pressure on her, but if she can just be precise. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Good morning, Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, Honorable Deputy Minister, and the National Commissioner. I would like to just take through the committee with regards to the alleged allegation of sexual incidents between inmates and offenders. I'll try to present within 10 minutes if I'm able to cover almost everything. I just want to highlight in terms of the presentation, go straight to the problem statement. In terms of the problem statement, we have found ourselves in terms of the alleged sexual incident activities between officials and inmates that occurred in the workplace, and we regard that as an unfortunate situation. It's part of the misconduct that the mandate of the department, we do not regard that as part of the corrections, but in terms of the act has brought the department into disrepute. Dramatic action in terms of addressing the problem statement, the problem of the incident. We were able to manage to deal with the issues of the parties involved in terms of the incident. But however, this is still a challenge in terms of making sure that we prevent recurrence or repeating of such incidents. I would like also to highlight that it got an impact on our security threat in terms of ensuring the safety and the dignity of women and men in the brown uniform in the corrections. Further to that, just also to highlight that the department is committed to improve the effectiveness of the rehabilitation processes by ensuring that we eradicate acts of misconduct committed by officials which are not in line with the mandate of the department. Further to that, we will also want to highlight that the white paper on the corrections demands that an idle correctional officials embodies the core functions that the department hopes to install in the offenders. Just on the background on slide number 6, the Department of Correctional Services recognized labor have signed a collective agreement that in terms of Resolution 1 of 2006, disciplinary code. Further to that, the objective of the disciplinary code and procedure is to regulate the behavior of officials, promote mutual respect between the managers and the employees. The DCS members are exposed to different training programs that are aimed to promote acceptable conduct. I will share a bit of some of the programs that we are also embarking, that we are also continuously conducting within the correctional service. Also, I would like to provide that there is also a reference to the disciplinary processes of ensuring that there are no discriminatory actions against officials in terms of compliance, but also to highlight on the policy level itself. At the policy level, the intervention is to ensure that we are actually strategically guiding and addressing, regulating all unethical behaviors that we find ourselves, like the case of KZN. For an example, I just also want to highlight that the disciplinary code is catering all the levels from level 1 to level 12. We also apply the senior management handbook, which is focusing from level 13 to a higher level, that is on the policy level. And in terms of the program level, we will also just want to share that we have got a presentation and awareness program that covers the training on the conduct in consultation with the relevant partners like the organized labor, POPRO, and PSA. I also want to just highlight that advocacy and awareness raising workshops are implemented to educate officials at all levels about ethical behavior in the workplace. And those part of the training is those education sessions that is expecting to promote the disciplinary code and to ensure that there is common understanding, there is also compliance. In part of the education and training courses, we are also offering the ethical behavior sessions that also assist in correcting behaviors that are not acceptable. You can't be policing sexual activities, but you can actually correct the mental behavioral aspects of officials in terms of making them aware, especially with the female, building up the assertiveness of able to behave in a manner that is prescribed in terms of the white paper. I just also wanted to indicate that part of the intervention program on the program level, we are doing induction and orientation program. In that, we are including all the new learners, the new appointments in terms of the senior managers and all the other levels. We are also doing the retraining of reskilling all the other levels as part of induction. That is also assisting in trying to install the appropriate conduct in order for us to address the issues of misconduct of sexual incidents. That is also part of our consequence to say that the department will not tolerate any misconduct that are not within the policies in terms of our security codes and standards, and that will lead to a dismissal. Just also on the capacity building programs, on the training, the HR Human Resource is continuously offering training in terms of the human resource development of our officials together with our labor. With the labor training, which we have just continuously having with the shop stewards, was to encourage that also when they are engaging with the officials, they are actually able to promote that we will not tolerate any misconduct of sexual incidents within the workplace. I would like to just highlight that also part of the intervention program on level 1, the branch incarceration and correction, which we have worked together with, they've also have put together a program that is addressing the in-house professionals. Our psychologists, our social workers, our criminologists are currently now engaging at a center level on implementing intervention measures that will assist the offenders and then also assist the officials in terms of how we can address the issues of sexual incidents. The department, through the branch also, we are also proposing an alternative intervention measures that will also appraise in terms of the standard operating procedure. Currently, as per the case of KZN, KwaZulu-Natal, we are doing a case study analysis as the outcome of the case study will inform us in developing a model that will actually oversee types of behaviors in terms of the departmental goal of ensuring that we are a correctional service that is actually addressing the mandate as per the Correctional Service Act. I just also wanted to indicate that part of the department aims to impact on the rehabilitation and also the corrections environment, preventing our centers in the context of making sure that our security standards are adhered to. The health part of the offenders is also managed in a manner that the psychologist's role in terms of the offender system is also enhanced to promote and develop interventions that will prevent incidents of sexual conduct between inmates and offenders in terms of our professional standards. I would like to just also highlight that security, we also have developed measures that are part of enhancing the security philosophy and in terms of our approach. And further to that, we are having a process of the integration of the security strategy that includes, among others, security dynamics, which is about the correctional officials developing a friendly, positive relationship that is professional with the inmates, and that is also built up with an ideal that says a clear understanding of maintaining security standards in terms of making sure that we maintain authority of officials and ensure that it's reinforced throughout the centers. Part of the security intervention, the department has completed a process of aligning standard operating procedures within the legislation framework of the department. In that, we also finalizing the alignment of the security structure through the microstructure is able to respond, amongst others, in terms of organized crime syndicates, operating within the security environment, combating smuggling, and enhancing of the search strategy. I just also wanted to indicate that under the security intervention, the prevention of unauthorized articles entering correctional service center strategy, there is also vetting and personal integrating policy, which we are busy with, information gathering and analysis policy, which we are also busy with. That is also ensuring that we are actually conducting high-level profiling of offenders, so that it will prepare us according to the security standards. That includes vetting of our officials, that includes personal integrating of our policies. So also we are developing a digital forensic investigation business case, which is at the final stage, the capacity to respond to cybercrime and also ensuring that illicit trade within the operation of our environment. I would like to just highlight under security intervention, we do have our short-term programs that we are having. That is the ethical behavior code of conduct, that is part of the ethics, which is currently being implemented. We also have the remodeling of the organizational culture, adherence to the departmental code of conduct and ethics. I would like to just highlight that we do have a culture of personal qualities, of making sure that we are a professional department, and we will want to install that and ensure that all the officials are adhering to such standards. Security awareness programs are continuously happening in all the centers, and on the monthly basis from the HR, we are also ensuring that the managers are running with that specific one, especially with adherence. As part of what we are also doing on the short term, the development of our consequence management that is inclusive of security, human resource, disciplinary processes within the department. I will also just want to highlight on the long term in terms of the reorientation. What I mean in terms of the reorientation, currently the current staff that we are currently having, in terms of us ensuring that we eliminate all the elements of sexual incidents within the correctional service, we are reorientating in terms of the security dynamics to make sure that they are aware and they are also ready in terms of prevention measures. Part of the security standard procedures, that is including the systems to address non-compliance and the breaches in terms of the long term. The department is also looking at a system to develop the detective part, preventative part, and the corrective part. And that will assist in terms of the department detecting elements of any sexual incidents before they can occur, and also how we can manage the prevention and then also the corrective part of it. I also have highlighted in terms of slide 14, the current status of the disciplinary cases of officials and offenders. In terms of the province, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, and Northwest, together with head office, there are no reported case of incidents of alleged incidents of sexual activities. In Gauteng, we had one reported. Currently, it's pending. It's under investigation, and we are making sure that we follow it into ensuring that it's finalized. We also have KZN, which we had two. Our deputy minister has already alluded to those ones that they're already being finalized in terms of the two, but also there's one pending. We also have one in Free State that is actually reported and has been finalized. In the Eastern Cape, there has not been any incidents reported or activities of allegation of sexual incidents reported. And then I also just wanted to highlight that Western Cape, there are no any incidents. But just also to just add Honorable Chairperson, in terms of the gender breakdown, in KZN, there has been a female official and a male offender in terms of the reported case. And then also with regards to Free State, it was a Free State and also Northern Cape, it was a female and then also a male offender. In terms of housing, in terms of gender, it was a female official and a male offender. And also just on the KZN, on the number 21 of KZN, is being a male and with a female offender. So that is there just on the breakdown of the gender on the cases that we have currently, that and already has been finalized, actually 2, and then 2 also pending based on the investigation. I just wanted to indicate in terms of the measures that we are having in place, that the very nature of the correctional systems require a very strict code of behavior supported by a clear, effectively enforced of the disciplinary code with an effective disciplinary procedure. What I mean in terms of the measure is that the department is currently ensuring that they promote high level of discipline of officials throughout the management area, also the local center in all the regions of the province within the correctional service, which is part of what the HR, together with security, are pioneering or making sure that it's on the day-to-day that is discipline within the correctional service. I would also want to highlight that the disciplinary code of procedure is constantly, in terms of the principles of administrative justice, we are ensuring that there's timeless action that we are taking in terms of making sure that the safety and secure orderly management on the correctional service all the time, so that we can prevent escape or we can prevent any element in terms of our disciplinary processes. However, as I've already indicated, that the disciplinary is in terms of our managers, we are also ensuring that the supervisors or the supervision part of the management, they are also responsible to ensure that those procedures are followed on a day-to-day basis, so that we may not find ourselves that we are not addressing issues timelessly. So there's also emphasis of supervisors and management role in terms of placing the process of special investigations on any serious offenses that might occur within the center. I also just wanted to indicate that officials in the correctional service are continuously exposed on the training and awareness. You might ask what type of a training. I would like to just indicate that ethical conduct training that addresses the behavior and sensitize the awareness that having an intimacy relationship with an offender is not allowed in terms of the code. That is what we are training in terms of our program. And there's also wellness and of the employees. We are also continuously saying you need to ensure that you are there to the policies, and our wellness program need to be enhancing the part of the training that we are conducting. On the way forward, I would like to just highlight that the department continues to handle labor disputes in accordance with the Constitution and the Labor Relations Act 66 of 1995 as amended. Further to that, the correctional service members will continuously be exposed to training and awareness campaigns advocating that we do not tolerate any sexual incidents which might lead to a dismissal of those who are found guilty in terms of any incident or any reported case. Organized labor, which is our stakeholder, our partner, they are continuously also making sure that they conduct awareness campaigns in terms of addressing the issues of unethical behavior together with the management of all the centers and the areas. We are also developing a professional intervention program aimed to regenerating high standards of professionalism, morale, ethical code of all the employees or officials employed within the department in the context of offender-focused rehabilitation and the correction operational environment at all the levels. I would like to just indicate also just lastly in terms of our ethical awareness and ethical actions that based on the amendment code of good practice on sexual harassment, which is we are also running parallel in the department, it is assisting us to make sure that there's awareness of sexual harassment and of sexual incidents, because it's part of what the Department of Labor is encouraging the employer. So we are also complying in terms of those education sessions. I would like to thank the National Commissioner, the Chairperson, and the Deputy Minister for the opportunity that I've been given to make the presentation. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner and your team, with those presentations. Honorable members, can I invite you for engagement with these two presentations? Can I see those who want to engage so I can acknowledge you? Honorable Self, Honorable Nola, Honorable Velma Nivot Drachen, Nomatemba Maseko Jele. Those are the four hands I have for contributions from members. Honorable Self.
Thank you, Chairperson. I found the presentations very interesting. The second presentation really was from an HR perspective, what happens to somebody and what measures put in place from HR perspective. But really, I want to know how many cases, in what centers, how, in other words, what security breaches were there, and what steps to be taken to prevent recurrence. That is what was missing out of that presentation, the security component to it. The first presentation was interesting too, but from slide 18 and 19 onwards, the presentation started to look very promising. You see, funds are going to get progressively limited. And that means inevitably that offenders who can responsibly be released into the community should serve non-custodial sentences. That means that the community corrections must no longer be the step tile of the department. It must be at the cutting edge. It must get resources, personnel, equipment, premises, etc. That is the one component to it, but there's no sign that I can see in terms of the budget that sort of shift is taking place, the shift from incarceration to community corrections. And I don't think that budget aligns with that vision, and neither, frankly, does the sentencing regime. Because you can't have 16,800 people serving life sentences in our correctional centers and still have a commitment to community corrections. Those things need to be aligned so that we can get the system to operate properly. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Self. We're going to stay with the Self session. Commissioner and your team, immediate responses to that? I'm staying with Honorable Self and these questions. Let's engage with that before I go to the next member.
I'll allow the CDCHR and then the Chief Security Officer to come in to support her, and then we'll go to CDC Community Corrections.
Thank you, National Commissioner, and thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, Honorable Selfie, for the question. I would like to respond as follows. With regards to how many were reported, we have a total of 4 cases that were reported in terms of the alleged sexual incident. And further to that, the nature of the incident as in terms of the type of cases that were reported, I would like to respond as follows, that the first one from the KZN was a video of an inmate and an official on sexual activities. That is the nature of the type of a case. And the one for the Free State Northern Cape, it was an inmate relationship with an offender. The one on housing is the inmate relationship with an offender. And the other one for the KZN was also an inmate relationship with the offender in terms of the type of the cases that have been reported. I'm going to hand over to my colleague with regards to the security aspect of security measures that are in place. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chair, National Commissioner, DM, and members. Having heard what the question is relating to which centers where these incidents happened, and I do believe the CDC HR wanted to respond. Of course, we do know that in KZN, it was Devon management area. For the other one, it's Ngome, medium B, and of course, okay, she is going to add, Chairperson, the rest. I know that the other one happened in Mafeking. Okay. We do have a list here. KZN I've already indicated, that is Ngome and Devon management area. And we have another one that is in Element. Yes, Element. We do have Free State and Northern Cape, to be specific there. That is Groot Flame management area, yes. And we do have one for Gauteng, that is Modabir management area. The last one in Element, to be specific, Chair, is Wittek management area. So that is where these unfortunate activities occur, Chair. Regarding the security measures that we have put in place, certainly we have indicated, I think it is the first slide that spoke about security there, that we have introduced a model. This model is the one that is going to be assisting us, shaping the department and ensure that we did utilizing the modus operandi, which currently the team that is placed in Ngome management area is currently doing exactly that. The CDC indicated here that we do have a team after establishing a project called Project Lungisa. This Project Lungisa is one that we are going to utilize as a case study nationally, where we are focusing on the modus operandi. We are looking into the circumstances surrounding these matters, to how it happens, so that we can come up with appropriate measures. And indeed, where there is an element of crime that has been committed, which we are indeed calling the organized crime, there are certain measures that we are employing to deal with that, in line with, of course, the arrangement that we have with our sister department, that is crime intelligence, your intelligence, also forming part of this. So we are coming with a big plan, which indeed it has been developed and approved by the leadership. That is the project charter, which is why I have to indicate that that plan that we are putting in place from security point of view will be able to address this holistically. And of course, like I said, nationally, because we are of the view that what is happening or what has happened in these 4 areas might be happening elsewhere. I thought I must just pause there, but of course, if the chair will allow me, this plan that we are putting in place, which is the model I just spoke about, it is a plan that is aimed at coming up with an offensive and a defensive approach, which will then ultimately will be able to assist us with the prevention, detection, as well as a response to that particular environment or particular activity going forward. Thank you so much, Chair.
Is that it? Thank you. Okay. Good. Honorable caller.
Well, thank you very much, Chair. Of course, let us welcome the presentation by the department as it relates to these 2 important issues of the 19,000 parolees as means to curb the risk of COVID-19 infections, and a matter that has attracted and triggered society, that which of sexual incidents in our correctional service centers. So I think firstly, let's welcome the reduction of the 19,000 parolees. Was, in my view, how they explain how we've moved from 19,000 downwards does make sense. And they have acted in accordance to the provisions of law. And let's actually thank them for being proactive in some of these matters, because some would have been released on parole or used this COVID period for their release to go and commit more crimes. So at least the department was proactive in terms of those who recommitted and others. So I think, Chair, let's officially welcome that reduction from 19,000 to a lower number. But, Chair, where concerns arise is when it relates to the commission of crimes by our own parolees. A concern arises there because as the explanation comes from the department, it means we don't have a stringent system of control to these parolees, such that they find it so easy and convenient for them to recommit crimes when they are taken back to society. The deputy minister says there is indeed a need to relook into the security system. The presentation by the CDC was that there is a collaboration with CSIR as means to go towards the electronic tracing of the offenders. I want to check, Chair One, that have this been added to the 2021-2022 financial year APP and budget? Was they've already seen it, they've diagnosed the problem. Have they been able to add it as part of the recourse to the problem to the 2021-2022 budget and the APP? The issue, Chair, of the, I'm sure is the KwaZulu-Natal incident. The last engagement we had regarding this matter with the department, there was an issue or a delay in tracing whose gadget was used in taking the video of the incident. They said they have not yet been able to get into that effect, whose gadget was used, so that we're able to effect consequence management properly into those who have enabled that incident. We see, Chair, those who are involved in the act, but we are again extending the consequence management system to the enablers of that incident. So has the department been able to trace properly whose gadget was it, whose phone was it, who else was involved in planning that incident? There is an issue, Chair, of disciplinary code that is explained explicitly, the training and capacity building and all that. But the truth, Chair, that we're faced with before us now is beyond the disciplinary systems and code of conduct, capacity building. The ills of the department do not come to an end. You go beyond sex incidents, the drug syndicates. There's a lot that is happening in our correctional services centers. Has the department seen the need to relook on the code, weigh it against the effect it is causing in the department, see if there is a necessity for amendment somewhere, adding of some, of course, looking at the current situations that are happening in line with the evolution of society, so that at all material times, the systems we put are able to be in line with the current conditions of the department. So have they seen a necessity to weigh up whether the current code is the best? Where are the challenges? Is it yielding the actual intended result? The last of which is that sitting here, I'm imagining a 21-year-old boy who's seated there, who has since received that video, who now has the conviction that in actual fact, being arrested is no different from staying in the society. Those are the negative effects these kind of sex incidents are causing to the society, and therefore, in turn, cause a deterioration in the confidence our people have in our judicial system and in our corrections system. Has the department went out, whether through media statements, through interviews, or whatever form, has it went out to communicate to society what transpired? And what actions is the department taking in trying to not only deal with this incident, but to further curb incidents of that nature in the near future? Has the department taken that concerted effort to do such a thing and conscientize society? Thank you very much, Chair. That was all from my side.
Thank you, Honorable Ngola. We'll stay with your issues. Commissioner, immediate response to the Ngola queries and engagements.
Thank you, Chair. The CDC Compo, there was a question from Honorable Self that she will cover also, Chair. So the CDC Community Correction, and then the CSO and CDC HR. Thank you.
Thank you, National Commissioner. In terms of the question from the Honorable Staff, the issue of the budget, whether there is a shift from incarceration to community corrections, as we have indicated that our focus within the department is in terms of, we have developed the service delivery model to ensure that we are going to focus more on the theater of operations, which is focusing more on management areas and also the community corrections officers. in the center. The microstructure that we are currently in the process of finalizing also took into consideration the structure of community corrections that will enable us as community corrections to ensure that we achieve our mandate within community corrections, because we have been using the previous structure. But for now, in terms of the microstructure that will be finalized during this current financial year, is going to cater for the issues of our structure. The other issue is in terms of learnership, as it was indicated that we are going to absorb learners within community corrections, so that whilst we are finalizing the community correction structure, even learnership will be absorbed within our structure to assist in terms of capacity, increase the staff establishment. Whilst we are working on the microstructure, we have prioritized the issue of social auxiliary workers. So as soon as we have finalized that, we are going to appoint a number of social auxiliary workers within our system. In terms of other resources, electronic monitoring is also another system that is going to assist us in terms of physical monitoring of our offenders, of our parolees and probationers within our community corrections. We have indicated that the project is from February up until March. So within this current financial year, we'll be in a position to finalize and start with the implementation of the electronic monitoring system. So the other key issue that we are working on is in terms of partnership with stakeholders. As I've indicated with regard to the implementation of the district development model, to say as community corrections, we are working with stakeholders in various communities, and we ensure that all management areas and correctional centers are engaging stakeholders within their communities, and they are also working closely with those stakeholders to ensure that resources are being shared within communities. With regard to the issue of reoffending, we do have the system in place that ensures that we are in a position to know how many people are offended and the types of crimes that they have committed. So for Eastern Cape, we have 3 overall, as indicated, is 126. And now in terms of the violent crime, I'll focus more on the violent crime, but as indicated earlier, we also have economic crimes that were committed. So in terms of the violent crimes, we have 3 times murder under Eastern Cape. We also have 1 rape committed from Eastern Cape. And from LMN, we also had 1 rape and also 2 grievous bodily harm. Free State and Northern Cape, we have 1 murder and 1 rape. Western Cape, we have 2 murders and 1 rape. And 11 out of the 126, we also have 11, which is due to the lack of support, like lack of family, loss of support. So that's with regard to the question on reoffending. And some of the reasons that our offenders are reoffending, as indicated, is also due to unemployment. Some of our parolees, due to their crime records, they are struggling to get employment, but we are working with stakeholders to ensure that we facilitate those economic opportunities for our offenders. The other issues is also in terms of gang activities that our offenders, they still reoffend due to gang activities. We have indicated the loss of support system, which has been addressed to say all the offenders, we need to make sure that during admission, we start working with the offenders to ensure that their families will get involved rather than start working during the process and towards parole. And the issue of electronic monitoring, yes, we do have the electronic monitoring, but it is not included in our APP. It is included in our annual operational plan. The reason being that it's still a project for the financial year, so it's running from February up until the end of the financial year. There is a budget available for implementation of the electronic monitoring, this new electronic monitoring system that we are currently working on. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you so much, Chair. Adding to the issues that were asked by Honorable Mola, specifically on the cell phones. The cell phone, of course, that was used, it was a cell phone belonging to this offender in Nome. And I have to indicate that the cell phones, in terms of our approved standard operating procedures, are not allowed. It's one of the unauthorized articles that are not allowed within our system. And it's very clear on our SOPs. Hence, we are emphasizing the consequence management from the time of end to wherever it happened to find itself into our facilities. That is unacceptable, which is then why through the investigation that was conducted after this incident, it was established that one of the two ladies who has been fired or dismissed is the one that smuggled this cell phone of this offender into the facility, as a result of which it was added into the charges for that particular individual. And of course, we are saying here the offender was also charged for possessing this cell phone. Hence, we indicated here that he has been downgraded to a maximum. Regarding what measures then we have in ensuring that this matter of the cell phone is addressed. In terms of the current measures that we have, like I indicated, SOPs are very clear. Cell phones are not allowed. Therefore, proper searches need to be conducted at the entry as well as exit gate of the facility. And the intervention that we are putting in place, Chair, we are finalizing our integrated security strategy, which is then inclusive of all the elements of the activities, I would say the system that we want to have going forward. Currently, as we speak, we are procuring, waiting for the delivery of a forensic system that is going to be assisting us in downloading the information from the cell phone. Like all the cell phones that we are confiscating during our searches, we will be able to do this on our own. But at this point in time, we are utilizing our sister departments that are helping us with this while waiting for our own. And by extension, Chair, as I indicated earlier on, the model that we are introducing, it is indeed inclusive of what has been indicated by Honorable Member, that is Honorable Mola, here to say what role is the department playing, or what role does the community play in terms of assisting us with all this. The model that we are bringing in, as I try to summarize shortly what it does, and I said it is going to be focusing on the offensive as well as defensive approach, holistically, ensuring that within it we are able to have the environmental scanning done, geographical scanning done, focusing on our operational or standard operating procedure, looking into it and say, to what extent did all these levels, as I was indicating, played or had an impact in this security breach, while we are focusing on the target being the individuals that have done this mess. And then on the very same breath, we are able to conduct the threat and risk assessment, which is part of this model, Chair, where we are able to understand exactly to what extent is our facility impacting negatively on all these security breaches. The integrity of our officials also is one thing that is added in the security model. We have to be looking at that. We are finalizing the policy on the integrity testing. I indicated it is vetting and personal integrity of our officials, so that we don't wait for the vetting process to take place, because it might take time because we are dependent on SSA. But we are having our policy here that is being finalized, that is going to be at any given time, we can just test people and go forward. And of course, looking into our policies as well as procedures. So this in all, it will be able to give us a holistic approach in being able to prevent things before they could happen, detect them before they could even start to happen, and eventually coming up with a response to all this, inclusive of the community. Because by mere focusing on our own environment, we might not be able to cap and be able to address this appropriately. Thanks.
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me also just add on the issues of regarding whether the policy on the disciplinary procedure is responsive enough in terms of addressing sexual incidents going forward. I would like to respond as follows, just to indicate that the department, as it's currently developing its consequence management, we are also adding the part of the human resource on the ethical, behavioral standards that needs to be also be addressed in terms of the code of ethics guided by the DPSA, so that we can close all of those elements that the LRA might not zoom specifically in addressing challenges that might be of sexual incidents, read together with other policies in terms of what my colleague has already mentioned. In response to preventative measures going forward, the issues of recruitment, including psychometric battering, will also be part and parcel of what we'll also use in terms of making sure that when we are recruiting, we are taking the right fit for the purpose. Other parts will be also the issues of ethical behavior sessions conduct that will also assist in ensuring that there is more awareness on the prevention issues of sexual incidents. And I would like to also indicate that on the security part, just to add the issues of profiling of offenders on a regular basis, just to make sure that they are at a level where it's complementing what the security standards prescribe. Lifestyle audit is going to be also one of the other preventative measures that will also be continuously checking, so that it will assist us in terms of focusing on best methods of how we can actually analyze and prevent such incidents to happen as part of the case study that we are busy with in KZN. Lastly, I would like to indicate that in terms of the code of ethics and conduct, as which we are currently addressing in terms of ethical organizational culture of the department, capacity building issues, which you already have mentioned, is to ensure that we are also driving focus on productivity, efficiency, discipline, implementing best work methods, and also leading efficiency in on-service delivery by ensuring that the supervisors or managers, those who are supervising officials on a continuous basis, they will also be checking these elements so that we can able to prevent them happening within the department. Thank you. Over to you.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson, Deputy Minister, and Honorable Members. Honorable Ngola raised an issue of what is the department going to do insofar as the public is concerned. How are we going to restore the confidence of the public based on the things that have happened recently in the Department of Correctional Services? Our colleagues have already indicated, Honorable Chairperson, the initiatives that are currently underway. One, the issue of Operation Lungisa, the lessons that we are going to learn from that exercise, the operation that we are busy with there, will be communicated in the media once we are clear about the things that we are trying to do there. Tomorrow, as the colleague indicated, we are having a session of the professionals of the department where they will be discussing this issue. Once we find solutions based on those discussions, those things will be communicated to the public through our external communication department, because as we all know that communication is the way to go to do public awareness regarding these bad things that has happened in our environment. We are also going to ensure, Honorable Chairperson, that we sustain this, because we don't want to have a situation where we have repeats of these bad things in our environment. Hence, the colleagues have already indicated that we are going to be firm when it comes to the code of conduct. We are going to be firm when it comes to the education and awareness of our own officials, insofar as this kind of behavior is concerned. So those are the things that we are planning to do, Honorable Ngola, and we are going to do that soon. We are at the stage that the exercise of Operation Lungisa at Ngome will be completed soon. So around June, we should be out there indicating exactly the stance of the department when it comes to these behaviors that has been out there in the media. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Okay, thank you. Velma?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and thank you to the department. Greetings to everybody in the department and everyone present. I have a few questions. Firstly, I would like to know, before a parolee gets out, you have to, investigate the family or check, if the family will take the parolee back to their home or, or in the community. And I would like to know, how are the interactions with the families? Because some of the families don't want the offenders back. So who goes and speaks with the family, explains to the family, that, the offender's term has ended or he's up for parole, and who communicates with the family or kind of explains to the or promotes the possibility that the family can take the parolee back. And then just on slide 9, it says other offenders who qualified picked up further charges. I would like to know that were they before they were put on parole, they were still incarcerated. How did they already pick up extra charges? Or did they pick up the extra charges while they were out on parole and then they went back to the facility? So if you could just clarify that point. And then you refer to partnerships with different stakeholders or NPOs. So I would like to know, who are they? Can you give us examples of the NPOs and stakeholders that you are referring to? And then in terms of halfway houses, each halfway house, how many people, how many parolees can it accommodate? And then what assistance does the halfway house give to those parolees? So just how many each halfway house accommodates and what assistance it provides. And just a moment. The social auxiliary workers. You said that you sent out a proposal for funding. You sent it to the Presidential Employment Stimulus. Have you received a response on your proposal, whether or not you will get the funding? And also related to social auxiliary workers, they can't work without supervision. They must work under the supervision of a social worker. So the social workers who supervise them, are they from social development or are they DCS social workers? And Just another moment, please. Yes, I would like to know how much, so for 2021, you've indicated lack of ICT. So how much, so for 2020, so this new financial year, how much funding have you allocated to improve the ICT situation? In relation to the electronic monitoring system, you said that you had a contract from 2014 to 2019. I was not there during that time, so I would like to know the evaluation of that system during that time. You know, what was the reason for the end of the termination of the contract? Did it help you track the parolees? Did it not help you? Did it not work? And then now, as you're moving on to the new system, how much was provided for the new electronic monitoring system? Is it working? Are you able to use this new system to correctly, accurately track parolees and monitored parolees? And the second presentation, just going to the slides, just a moment. You said, I'm just looking for it. I'm just looking for it on the slide. Yes, so in the second presentation on slide 8, you say the chairperson and the instigator, the chairperson and the, so yeah, the chairperson and the instigators session. So who is the chairperson that you are referring to and who needs the training? And there's somewhere here about actions. Yes, on slide 4, you say that drastic actions have been taken in the past. I would like examples of these drastic actions, especially if this is still continuing. So what are the drastic actions that you took before, and why have they not helped the situation in this case or in these days? You mentioned a whole long list of, you know, the training and awareness and ethical awareness and all of that. I did not hear any practical ways to prevent officials and inmates engaging in sexual relations. You know, we hear a lot about correctional services being overcrowded. So I'm getting the picture that, you know, there's no way to get any kind of privacy. So what are the practical measures put in place to prevent officials and inmates having the opportunity to engage in such actions? In previous sessions, we have heard that the sexual incidents in correctional services end up on social media, different social media platforms. So is there a way, or have you investigated how inmates get access to social media, or how they can be prevented to have access to social media and therefore share these videos? Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Responses to those clarities sought, Commissioner and team?
Thank you, Chairperson. We will get the CTC Communicom call and then the CDC HR, and then the Chief Security Officer, and acting COC.
Yes, thank you very much, National Commissioner, and thank you very much for the questions from the Honorable Member. In terms of support from the family for parolees, we have social workers in our system. So social workers, they do engage with the families, and also some of the head of the correctional centers within our centers, they do communicate with families of our members whilst they're still in our correctional facilities. Even when they are on parole, we do have reintegration officials who still continue engaging with the family of the parolees. With regard to the question on NPOs, we do have quite a number of NPOs that are in our system. For example, we do have the National Application Center, which is offering the skills empowerment program to our parolees and probationers. We also have other NPOs like DK Fire Media, which is also marketing the positive image of DCS, whereby they come and we give them some of our parolees and probationers. They interview them, and those parolees and probationers, they show off what they've learned within our correctional facilities, and it is being presented in the community so that the DCS is also being promoted. So we also have engagement with other departments. So in terms of the list, we do have a list of NPOs that are within our system. And in terms of the NPOs, in terms of the halfway houses, as I've indicated, currently we have 7 halfway houses. And in Western Cape, we do have 3 halfway houses. In Gauteng, we have 1. In Free State, Northern Cape, we have 1. LMN, we have 1 halfway house. And in KZN, we have 1 halfway house. And in terms of the numbers, for 2021, we have reintegrated our parolees and probationers. The number is 33 that we have reintegrated through our halfway houses. Coming to, in terms of social auxiliary workers, in terms of the funding requested for presidential stimulus, we have not yet received the response. We have presented our case to National Treasury, but we are still awaiting feedback. It is true, Honorable Member, that our social auxiliary workers, they are working under the supervision of social workers. Within correctional services, within community corrections, we have 118 social workers, and those auxiliary social workers are being supervised by our social workers within our system. The issue of the lack of ICT and also the electronic monitoring for 2014, 2019, yes, we do have an evaluation report, like the close-up report of indicating the lessons learned from the previous electronic monitoring system, which helped us a lot in terms of monitoring our parolees and probationers. Hence, we are now saying we still need to have the new electronic monitoring system, because it will also help in terms of reducing the overcrowding within our facilities when offenders are being placed or that are being sentenced to electronic monitoring. So in terms of the budget, for the current financial year, we have around 24 million for the electronic monitoring project, which will be implemented as soon as we have finalized the project. We came up with the electronic tagging, that is that bracelet between the department and also the CSIR. So that will be implemented as soon as it is finalized, and it will contribute towards reducing the number of our offenders within our correctional facilities, and even within community corrections. That will also help in terms of reducing the reoffending, because that system will give you the real-time information of where the offender is. So that is going to assist us a lot. Okay, thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. In response to slide 8, I would like to just indicate that the chairperson and initiators sessions are conducted in terms of the employee relations, which is the labor relations sessions that we are having in terms of the human resource policy right together with the labor relations. It's very important that the chairperson understands the human rights issues. They also understand the power relations in terms of the supervisor and offender and so on. So we continuously conduct those to ensure that they are aware and also to make sure that they are also addressing the professional conduct of employees and offenders when they are addressing matters. And also to ensure that we are also promoting the willing of accounting of employees in terms of the behavior and the process of being corrected while they are sharing the disciplinary processes in the various centers. With regards to slide number 4, in terms of the dramatic action, I will just wanted to refer it to the Limpopo, Mpumalanga, and Northwest Province, which there was an initial, there was an incident on the sexual incident some time back, which is about 2019, which the matter was actually finalized and be dealt with, and the official outcome of the investigation together with the disciplinary processes outcome, the official was dismissed and she tried to appeal, and then it was overruled and it was finalized as is not in the employment of the correction. So dramatical action is that zero tolerance, no exceptions on incidents in terms of the security standards, code of conduct, disciplinary procedures code, and all ethical codes that we are using in terms of the department. Thank you.
Chair, perhaps also to add regarding the further charges, there was a question relating to the number that has dropped from 19,000 to 17,922. Of course, one of the reasons is because of those that have been identified as having further charges. Further charges come, or how did we then establish this? Part of the prerequisite condition of the 2020 special parole dispensation was that all offenders would have gone through the DNA test by SAPS. Now, if for whatever reason that particular individual that has been so tested found that there is a matter that is still outstanding, of course, we would not place that person on parole. Hence, the numbers will then decrease from the number that was envisaged to have been placed out. Regarding and of course, by extension, there are those that refuse to go through the DNA test, but we have set an intelligence around that and work with the police to establish as to what it is that they are hiding. And by extension, we said they are not going anywhere, and indeed, we ended up dropping the numbers. The measures regarding the issue of preventing the offenders from utilizing the cell phones and also having an access to the social media, I have to indicate that firstly, as I indicated earlier on, provision is made in terms of our approved SOPs on security that cell phones are not allowed into our facilities. Therefore, they are unauthorized articles, or if one want to call it contraband, and whoever that is found with such is punishable. Now, we have in our integrated draft security strategy included the manner in which we are going to be dealing with it. In line, of course, with our partners, that is CSIR, that the CDC spoke about, we are coming up with a model that is going to be assisting us in blocking these cell phone networks within our prisons. of course, in line with the ICASA regulations. So that is part of the big package that I just spoke about, Chairperson. But by extension, policies are really enough to deal with this in ensuring that we don't find ourselves having to have these cell phones with smartphones into our facilities. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're now going to move to Nomathemba Maseko Jele, and the last member will be Professor Honorable Christian Themba Msimao. Nomathemba Maseko Jele.
Thank you, Chairperson. And thank you, DM, and the Commissioner and the team for
Just come close to your voice. We don't hear you properly. Raise your volume.
For the two presentations. Thank you very much.
It's still not there. Please, there's something, I don't know what it is.
Oh, how is it now?
Getting better. Zamu's reposition.
Let me come closer to the gadget. Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, thank you very much. Okay, you've just taken out my concentration on the
apology.
Okay, sorry. On the first presentation, Chairperson, where we're talking the issues of reductions, I would have a question as to, in fact, let me appreciate the thorough work that the department have done on this matter. I think we also acknowledge some of the good that we see, even though each time they come, we become harsh on them, but at least we also appreciate when we see good things and progress in terms of addressing all these issues. Indeed, we are appreciating their efforts and their concentration in making sure that they bring difference in this department. DM, so my question, Chairperson, on this one is it's the first one. I wanted to find out from the department as to amongst those who were released, how many of our foreigners inmates which were part of that. Maybe I didn't pick that one on the presentation. And then also, Chairperson, I wanted to find out from DM or the Commissioner also, if an opportunity of this kind can avail itself. Can this be repeated going forward? Can they maybe recommend that this really brought good results and it can be used maybe in future in order to bring some ease in terms of addressing the issue of congestion within our facilities? It's just a question. I'm trying my luck on this one, Chairperson. And then also on the issue of parolees, on the issue of families vis-a-vis the parolees, because we hear that some of the parents, the families, they don't want these inmates to come back to their families. I just want to find out, because there are a lot of reasons behind this. I just want to find out, because we're talking about those halfway houses and NGOs that are welcoming them if the parents or the families are rejecting them. I want to find out from the officials, what is it that we do from our side to assist these NGOs in order to be able to carry this burden? Because the fact that their families rejected them, it might be also an impact when it comes to their low esteem, and then they can maybe because they feel rejected. It can also be a reason for them to find themselves committing other crimes that will make them go back to the correctional back to our facilities, Chairperson. But there's one incident that is very painful that happened. It is my next door neighbor of my in-laws. Very painful, of one offender, a parole, that the whole family rejected this young man. He's not a young man anyway, he's of our age. Was rejected. Sorry, Chairperson, I'll take just a small time of your time in order to relate that. This man, the sister welcomed him, but at the end, it's something that happens last month. At the end, this gentleman ended up killing the very same sister. And now, as I'm talking to you, Chair, is back to jail, or do I have to say prison? Prison. So I'm saying the anger that our inmates have towards their families. What is it that we can do in order to assist them and assist the families? I know that you are sending officials to talk to the social workers to go and talk to the families and all that. What is it more that can be done in order to make sure that this does not happen, or the impact that is caused by rejection? Chairperson, what is it that can be done? If the officials can maybe assist us on that one also. But on this one of the sexual incidents, Chairperson, my advice will be to the female officials that indeed it's an embarrassment, especially because when I hear the numbers of these offenders, of these alleged, these allegations are more done by our women. In fact, especially when we are dealing with these issues of GBV during this time and being so at a high rate, it's very embarrassing. I think we need to talk sense in some of these officials who are involved in this. Maybe this can be only the few incidents that are reported. We don't know how many of these incidents that are taking place within our facilities. So we need to condemn that in its strongest term, Chairperson. But also, I want to also disagree with the department when they use the word training on our officials when it comes to these issues. I think we rather stay with education and awareness, because when you talk training, it's something else. Can we replace training with education and awareness? I just heard when one of our officials was responding, he just put it nicely, Chairperson, education and awareness, not training, because we can't train them. It's issues of behavior and issues of ethics. But on the very same issue, Chair, I would just want to find out from our officials that do they sign these the code of conduct when it comes to this ethical behavior issue? Is there any way maybe they sign so that even if when we discipline them, we are able to also to draw them back or on something that we have made them aware of, that this behavior will not be tolerated? I just want to find out on that one, Chairperson. The last one, Chairperson, on the videos. There's a video that was taking rounds in the media, not of sexual incident, but the video where at the end we were informed that this video it was just a joke, where the inmates were having gun. One inmate was having a gun, and then they hold hostage this official and all that. It was like, later they say it was an act. What is it that we have done as a department in condemning this? Because with the violence that we have within our prisoners and the many incidents of misconduct and all those wrong things that are reported in our prison, what have we done in order to condemn this, if this was really an act? Chair, I think, Chairperson, without wasting your time, let me just stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Responses?
Okay. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. In terms of the foreigners, we will provide the numbers. For now, we don't have the exact figures, because what is happening is that from correctional centers, when they come to community corrections, so they don't come into our community corrections, the foreign nationals. So they are just being registered on the system, and on the very same day, they are being deported, like by the Department of Home Affairs. So as soon as they get out of the correctional center, the correctional center must make sure that the Department of Home Affairs is available and community corrections. It's just a matter of recording them, and they get deported to the deportation cases. So we will provide the numbers of the foreign nationals in our system. Coming to the issue of the support system, yes, Honorable Member, we do have that challenge, as we have indicated that from the number of those who reoffended, we had about 11 loss of support. So we have that challenge, but within the department, what we are doing is that we communicate with families. We do have those families who are reluctant, but we make sure that prior to the release, our social workers will be involved with the families, whereby offenders will not be welcomed to their place of residence. And we engage even other family members within the family. So if it's the parents, we also engage, the social workers will also engage other family members who will be willing to accommodate our parolees and solutioners. And some, we had positive responses in some of those offenders whom the families were not accepting them, but with some, they will be placed at our halfway houses where the family did not accept, but will still continue engaging with family members and other family members. So our social workers are highly involved in that process of engaging the families in terms of accepting our parolees and probationers. So those who came back due to committing the violent or aggressive crimes, we do have anger management programs that are being offered to our offenders within our correctional centers. Even in community corrections, we also continue offering the anger management program to our offenders. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I would like to just also note the guidance by the Honorable Chairperson, by the Honorable Member, with regards to the embarrassment, to say also the department felt the same in terms of bringing the department into this dispute. But however, in terms of the action plan or gender-based violence plan of the department, we are also embarked on ensuring that the officials must promote the value of a correctional service official, that wearing a brown uniform, it must demonstrate dignity and respect of women by making sure that the women's conduct, it must also improve within the department. So it's part and parcel of our gender-based violence action plan going forward, which we will be reporting quarterly in terms of the progress. I would also want to acknowledge the input with regards in terms of capturing that we capture training and awareness when we do our presentation, and we would like to acknowledge that referencing to the skills development, soft skill training on sexual harassment, it's classified in terms of our reporting as training and also this part of awareness, but we will acknowledge the input from the honorable member. I would also like to respond to the question with regards to employees, whether they are signing the code of conduct. Yes, all the employees, when they are also appointed, there is also a process of signing off the code of conduct, which is also kept in all the employees' personnel files. And further to that, we are rolling out the ethics conduct, which all the employees will also be signing off the ethical conduct in terms of the ethics standards guided by the DPSA. Thank you.
Chairperson, if I can also add on the questions asked regarding the release of the foreign nationals for the special parole dispensation. Chair, it's just over 2,475. That is the figure we have at this point in time, out of the figure that we have earlier indicated on of 13,989. Now, regarding the issue of the video that was asked, indeed embarrassing it was, we have to indicate that the department have taken this matter seriously, as a result of which a criminal case was opened on the same day against the perpetrator, who happened to embarrass the department the way how he did. And that was the contravening of two sections within our Act. That is Section 124, which prohibits the utilization of any part of our correctional or Department of Correctional Services, in particular the uniform, be it the uniform of the officials or the uniform of the offenders, or any part for that matter that might be utilized for such. The other section that was contravened is Section 125 of the same Correctional Services Act that talks to the mass squandering of our uniform or any part of the department, of course, without the approval of the National Commission. And for that matter, the case was opened, and currently we are closely monitoring that matter because the police have reported to us that they are following up. They managed to get hold of the perpetrator, who then managed to give us the statement where he confirmed that he did not get any approval for such. So we are going to be getting again the update this week from the provincial brigadier here that I'm working with on this matter. Thank you so much.
Just to add, Honorable Chair, on the same issue that the Chief Operations Commissioner has indicated. The department is also embarking on the process of developing a social media policy. It's captured with our annual operational plan for this current financial year to address all these issues that we are experiencing in the media, so that we have a sustainable strategy going forward on how to keep this kind of things from happening. Thanks very much. I just needed to add that. Thank you.
Honorable Professor Christian Tembam Simang, your opportunity.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I would also like to welcome the two presentations, and I would also like to, I'm not apologizing, but I just want to state that I'm largely covered by my colleagues who asked questions before me. So I have but only a few questions to ask. Firstly, with regard to special paroles, I am focusing on the main objective for adopting this strategy. I think the main objective was to try and reduce the number of those who become infected with COVID-19. We believe, as our government has emphasized, that crowding can make this COVID-19 infections run rampant. So that was the main objective, that as our facilities are so overcrowded, we won't be able to control the spread. Now, my question is, since we started last year with the special paroles, what has been the outcome? Is the Department of Correctional Services comfortable that they are winning the war? And the second question, also focusing on the objectives, is when these offenders find themselves back in their communities earlier than was expected. In certain instances, you may find that the wounds that were caused by the offenses have not completely healed. Does this facilitate reintegration? Or if it doesn't facilitate reintegration, doesn't the offender who has been released on parole get perhaps tempted to re-commit a crime so that he or she may be convicted and be in a space where perhaps there wouldn't be a lot of disgruntled persons in the community. Then I go to the second presentation about the conduct of officials and a number of inmates where they commit these cases of these sexual cases. Now, the first impression I got when we were presented with this report was that this is a very serious matter. It can bring our correctional facilities into disrepute and the department itself into disrepute, and therefore it is worth reporting it and tackling it. But when it came to statistics, I did not know what to think then, when in provinces like Gauteng and KZN, with very large prison inmates, I only received 1 or 2 cases in the reports. So I thought, this is not very serious. It is not even worth reporting to the portfolio committee. The only reason that I could think of for reporting is that the means of detecting the offenses or the misconduct are not effective. if we come and talk about only one incident in the whole of KZN with so many correctional services facilities, and you go to Gauteng, you get only 2 instances of the commission of this misconduct. Surely you can't say that it is serious. If it is serious, then the ways, the means, the mechanics of detecting it are not effective. Those are the only 3 questions. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Msimang. A response to those issues?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson and the Honorable Member, for the questions. In terms of the parole break, the question on whether the communities accept our parolees back into the communities, what are their challenges? We have indicated that one of the criteria or the processes that have to be undertaken prior to release is to ensure that there is that family support. Then the second issue was also looking at the restorative justice program, the participation of offenders on restorative justice program prior participation. So our minister emphasized that placement of offenders will commence after all due processes, including victim-offender dialogue, have accordingly unfolded. So what happened is that if the offender did not attend the restorative justice program, then the offender was supposed to attend prior release. So the timing of the release of that offender will be delayed to ensure that the restorative justice program will be implemented and the victims will be involved. We have social auxiliary workers who were assisting in terms of tracing the victims to ensure that our offenders will engage in restorative justice program prior the release. And in terms of the communities accepting what we did prior the implementation of the special parole dispensation, there were marketing programs whereby we marketed the special parole dispensation through the virtual meetings. We also distributed information pamphlets, and also on community radio talks, we had presentations nationally in terms of the special parole dispensation, and we also engaged stakeholders and consulted them immediately after the pronouncement by the President and the Minister. And families of parolees and probationers were also consulted. We also did that in collaboration with the South African Police Service and also the Department of Social Development, so that those programs assisted in terms of awareness and making sure that people do understand when the offenders are coming back. But consultation with families was of critical importance in these cases, whereby our social workers were closely involved in terms of counseling the families, and the social auxiliary workers were also involved in terms of counseling our victims, promoting the restorative justice program so that both families and offenders would understand the process. So that had to be undertaken prior to the implementation of the special parole dispensation. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I would like to just respond with regards to the part on the statistics read together in terms of the Schedule A of our Correctional Service Regulation in terms of the disciplinary procedures. The department does take the the sexual allegation of sexual incidents as serious because of our security codes in terms of the work that we are conducting in terms of rendering, that is not acceptable that officials are finding themselves breaking the code of conduct as in terms of the misconduct on sexual incidents. When it's from the department, especially on HR, we even feel that it's too much, that it shouldn't even have been having any single misconduct, because you are appointed to ensure that you safeguard, you secure, you also professionally handle yourself in a manner that the offenders will able to see authority in terms of the uniform that you are wearing. So I would like to say we take note of the honorable member in terms of saying if you were expecting that there would be more, but because of the continuous management direction by the National Commissioner in all the facilities, in all the areas, that it will not be acceptable to have officials that are engaging in elements of sexual incidents that has just happened. So we will wish to see that in the near future, we should not even have any sexual incidents, so that we should not violate the security threat, so that there will not be escape, there will not be any other risk threat as a result of the conduct of an official. So we really just want to say we will promote high level of discipline in ensuring that there's zero tolerance in such behavior, in line with the gender-based violence framework of the National Developmental Plan on how we must also tackle them going forward. Thank you.
I wonder if I can also respond or give a response regarding the impact of the special parole dispensation 2020. Indeed, there have been a significant impact, which is very positive, as a result of which of the reality that we find ourselves in. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll quickly, before I come in, as we wrap up, 20 minutes, 20 seconds follow-ups from members, if there are any follow-ups. No new questions, just follow-ups, if there are any. And that will have to be very quick. Velma?
Only follow-ups, Chair?
Yes.
I wanted to rephrase my question regarding halfway houses. What I wanted to know is that of the 7 halfway houses, how many people can each house accommodate? It's a pity that I can't ask other questions, but yes, that's I can't ask new questions, but thank you.
Thank you. Any other member with a follow-up? None, thank you. Can we get a quick response to that? On the halfway houses by Honorable Valma.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Each halfway house must accommodate a maximum of 6 offenders. So it must be at a maximum of 6 offenders. Yes, 6. Thank you very much.
Okay. I hope you're happy there for Honorable Valma. That was our last of the questions before I go to the commission and the DM to...
On that, yes. On that, I'm happy, Chair. Thank you.
Yes, I know that you wanted to smuggle things. We don't smuggle here. They try to smuggle in these correctional centers, and we're trying to stop that. Thank you, Honorable Valma. Commissioner and the DM, just to round up from what the members, and I think there's a question posed by Honorable Jele in the chat as a follow-up. And she's asking, is any specific time frame, if any, that an inmate can spend with an official during work time, or they have open time? She says it's in line with the sexual allegations. Any response to that, Commissioner, before I come in? That should be a straightforward response. You don't need to go into that one.
Okay. Thank you so much, Chair. I was just trying to understand the question, hence a little bit of a delay. Indeed, we do not have a specific time frame where an official and a female official and an offender can spend, because they are officials in any way, Chairperson.
Oh, okay.
I hope I'm answering the question.
Can I
Fine, thank you, Commissioner and the DM. Maybe as you go away as your homework, it will be important that we, from my side, let me start with a much detailed question that you don't need to respond to. I want you to respond in writing. I would want to know the women in brown uniform. The women in brown uniform in the correctional services. Firstly, just to remind us, out of this close to 38,000, how many women in brown uniform do we have in DCS? All of them in total. And of those, how many are those in the management? And how many are your foot soldiers who are interacting on a daily basis with these inmates? Thirdly, I'm interested to know, of these women in brown, what kind of support do they get in executing their work? The ones that interact with inmates on a daily basis. What kind of infrastructure support, security support do they get? The question is being asked because one is picking up a sense of vulnerability.
Chair, sorry, you got frozen for a few seconds. Maybe you might want to go back a bit.
Okay, the end of freezer.
You freeze after I had asked what kind of support do they get as they perform their work.
Okay, so I was saying what kind of support, kind of infrastructure support, security support do these women in brown get in these, but also to give the kind of breakdown in terms of the categories of these centers, whether it's your maximum and all of that. It will be important to get the details of those. The question is being asked because one senses a level of vulnerability when it comes to their role and what they do. Even though the percentage which you have put down is 1% of these sexual allegations. It's 1%. It could be regarded as almost negligible or insignificant, but remains important because so far, hence vulnerability, the only report you're getting is that it is women in brown that are getting involved intimately with the inmates. I have not had a different aspect where you are told the men in brown are also involved with women inmates. Hence, one is picking up there might be a sense of vulnerability because it seems that you don't have inmates forcing themselves or attacking or imposing themselves on women in brown. It comes across, even if it's this low percent, as some kind of an adventure. And hence I'm picking up the issue of vulnerability. I would like to note that. The second point, Chair, has been raised. Just to add on to it, you are highlighting focus on the social reintegration, which is very important. But it does seem that we are having a big challenge on the main core, our core mandate, the core mandate of this department. The core mandate of this department is not incarceration. It's not any of the kind of other programs. The core mandate is rehabilitation. That's why we're correctional services and not prisons. That's the core mandate. It does seem that we're struggling on the core mandate, because if we're to just take the 17,922 and we within that, and just take the 126, and we're not even going back before the 18,544 as corrected by the DM in terms of those parolees, it does seem. So if you take the 126, is that out of that 126 who re-offended, it does point to not necessarily because I can see you focusing on them not being accepted by families, not being accepted by communities, trouble with social integration. I think you needed to go back and say, at a time when they were being paroled, it does seem that they were not ready. They were not rehabilitated. When you look at the kind of acts they got involved, this is assault, this is murder, and seriously multiple rapes and so on. So it points to that core service. That and of course, we all are aware that out of the many centers that we have, very few are kind of geared towards rehabilitation. We know that, and you can add overcrowding onto that. There seems to be a very big challenge on our core mandate of rehabilitation. And I'm just using the 126 as an example. And I think it will be important that we delve deeper into that. And certainly from as a chair here, it's something that we're going to have to attend to more, not necessarily you responding to it now, but also Honorable Self, Ngola, and others have raised this question. I think the issue of the budget, we are going to have to, in terms of whether as we go into the future, are we responding budget-wise on some of whether it's social integration, rehabilitation issues, and so on. I just wanted to make those few comments, but in the main, my comment is saying we have a long way to go, Deputy Minister and Commissioner, in responding to our mandate. You can excel on everything else. It's like when all of you were at school or varsity, you were always told that you have a major that you needed to pass. I need to get to pass as all the new subject is, and fail your major. I'm getting a sense that we're struggling in terms of our core mandate. And I want you to leave. I want to leave you with that homework to think about. It's something that doesn't sit well with me. So many years after we declared that this is a core mandate, because you're never going to get the restorative justice when you don't attend to many of those issues. With that, I'll ask Commissioner for your final words, and then the DM will follow.
Thank you, Chairperson. We will look at all the issues raised, but specifically yours, Chair, we'll try to match an adequate response to that. But I think what is true, Chair, is the fact that we are challenged as a department. We are trying, and I think that is the reason why we try to have a long-term outlook whilst we have medium-term targets that we set. On the second level, Chair, is we are also saying that there need to be greater interaction from the department side with some of our social departments, so that we deal with correction not just at the tail end of a process, but that we try and correct behavior at the entry point, which is at the family level, the community level, at the schooling level. So those are things that we are challenging ourselves with, so that we look at how do we not just look internally at the issues that we need to deal with. And I think the engagement with this committee over this brief period, Chair, has really lifted us and challenged us to respond in a specific manner. I need to indicate, Chair, that apart from the rehabilitation programs, we are challenged by information that is not sufficient, that we are not getting sufficiently from the South African Police Service. And we have had engagement with the South African Police Service, where we are in the process of signing an MOU, so that for rehabilitation programs, we need to understand the description of crime and the crime history of each offender. Because when we are dealing with rehabilitation, if we don't have that information, our response plan will be inadequate and will get repeat offending happening. So we are in a process to deal with that. But what it assists us with also, Chair, is that it allows us to see the victim at the beginning of the process. And therefore, community corrections will actually be part of our admissions also. So as we evolve as a department, community corrections is not going to be at the tail end only, but it's going to be at the beginning. When we deal with admissions, we will be interfacing with that. I thought it's important to reflect that. I think, Chair, there's also what we've agreed with the National Commission of Police is the fact that we want to develop protocols so that we don't have fragmented approaches developing in at the center level. I want to cite this because there's one case that we have not shared with you in the session. There's been a remand offender or remandee, female remandee, that has been impregnated by a policeman while she has been in our facility. But what we discovered in this process is that the police officer collected the remandee and that sexual act happened outside our facility. So we are looking, so we had engaged with South African Police Service, and they in the process of dealing with disciplinary matters in this regard. So I thought it's just important that we reflect that and that you don't see that in social media later and think we've not registered it with the committee. So we're following that up, Chair, but we want a clear protocol on how we deal and who can collect. So that protocol we are busy with. I think maybe what hasn't been clearly articulated is that the one official in Durban management area, Durban Westville, that slept with an offender was a male. So we had him charged for rape. So he's criminally charged for rape while there is a disciplinary process that's taking place there. So because we feel that the offender is vulnerable and therefore we are moving from the perspective that it's more serious than consensual in the way. So we're looking at that matter. I thought that it's important that I just reflect that. Chairperson, I also thought that there was a question if whether we could or should repeat. I think I'd want the department to look at that because I think it's just more complex than just giving an immediate response. If we could repeat the special dispensation. But what we are looking at here is the issue of our remandee population, because that is really overcrowding, the overcrowding in our facilities. If our facilities were just dealing with sentence offenders, we wouldn't be overcrowded. And it means that we need to get our partners, both the police, the NPA, to come on board so that they either compress the time that they use to complete the investigation so that they can go to trial. But I think there's too much time spent with offenders in remand. And I think if we want to deal with overcrowding, I think if we do deal with the categories of inmates that must be incarceration for remand. Because I think what we are doing is we're getting minor offenses coming in and people are not released. So I think there's a need for us to look at that aspect. Chair, we take note of the committee's advice to say, let's look at how you communicate and communicate better on the issues that you are doing so that you provide assurance to society in terms of the work. So I note that, Chair. Chair, I think from where I'm sitting, I thank again the committee, yourself and the committee, for the leadership you provide to us, and we endeavor to deliver according to our mandate. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. DM, how deals it out?
Thank you very much, Chow. Well, I don't think there's much that I can say after having listened to the members of the Portfolio Committee, as well as the officials, and lately the National Commissioner himself. We don't say it glibly when we express our appreciation for our interaction with yourselves as a committee. Because we know that as people who are in the Abasem scene, we sometimes are not able to observe some of the shortcomings that we have as we carry out our responsibilities. Hey, I don't know what's happening now here. I think I'm running out of a battery. So I was saying, Chairperson, that we take into consideration and with due respect the views that are expressed by the committee on the work that we are doing. And we are indeed going to make sure that where we are required, as you have indicated in your own contributions, we are going to provide written responses to some of what is required of us. But I take comfort from your remark to the effect that as a committee, you shall have to take a serious look at the budget that we have. Because, for instance, we took the decision to have the 19,000 deserving parolees out of our centers through the presidential pardon because of overcrowding. Now, the idea was that by the time these people were to be ready for release, they would have undergone the rehabilitation programs, only to find that the truth is that they were not all ready. And also it became difficult for us to come up with those programs in order for them to be released as soon as we would have wanted to. Because again, the restrictions of the lockdown prevented the performance of the kind of work that was required to ensure that they meet the criteria. So at the same time, as we were releasing them, there were those in any way who had to be released to correctional, to community corrections. And because of the normal processes that they had to follow. And that didn't mean, therefore, that there would be readily available space for the new release beneficiaries to come out. Hence, we have had to rely on some of the halfway houses. And the fact also that we have to hire or lease accommodation from the private, from private individuals is not doing as much good as a center, because you have to have full control of the premises that we have to use. You've heard, for instance, Chairperson, that we need the internet connection, and some of these centers need cables, and we're not in a position to provide those, to install those in premises that we do not own. So that's why I'm saying, therefore, that the kind of support we need from the committee regarding the budget is very much appreciated. It's very much important. Now, on the other issues, yes, the members are right that we shouldn't be talking much, spending a lot of time on training people to behave in a manner that is common sense. You don't have sexual relations with people you are working with, especially people who are under your care, if you like, people who are vulnerable. It's just totally unacceptable, and we wouldn't like to be seen as expending too much of the state resources on that. Question of discipline is the core in terms of the kind of work that we have to do, the kind of people we are as men and women in brown uniform. So as I'm saying, Chairperson, we take to heart all the advices that have been given to us, and we appreciate also the appreciation showed to the attempts that you have made to ensure that we do account properly to Parliament through the Portfolio Committee, especially when we are called upon to do so. On the matter of the point that I'm tempted to respond to some, but I don't think it's really necessary, but I can make a comment to Professor Msimang's point that the fact that there are so few that have been caught or detected is an indication of the ineffectiveness of our detection ways. I don't think that should be the test as to whether or not we're effective or not. But again, the irony of it is that some of these people who have been found out have been, the information has come out because of the illegal possession of these gadgets by people inside the centers. Had there been no smuggling of that kind of phone, for instance, at Ngome, we would not have been aware of what had happened there. So it's a kind of a twisted situation where we get to have information because people have done something that is illegal. But again, we would need the guidance of the committee. Lastly, Chairperson, very importantly, on the matter of social integration, I think this is where we need the support of members of Parliament from all parties. I think we would welcome invitations from members of Parliament whenever they go to do their constituency work with their communities, so that they assist us in educating and making the public aware on the need for people who have undergone our rehabilitation programs in our correctional centers to be accepted, both by their families, the communities, as well as the business community. Because there's this tendency by people in general that if you have a criminal record, then you are automatically not entitled to work, to be employed, to be given or business opportunities. And yet that is not the case. There are only specific instances where such people are not allowed, like within the Department of Correctional Services. My understanding is that the law does not allow us to re-employ those people. yet everybody else is expected to do that. So that kind of education and awareness campaigns is necessary so that it doesn't appear in the mind of the public that this is only a matter for the Department of Justice and Correctional Services in particular, that these people are released. This must be understand that it's a government policy that has to be promoted and accepted. Thank you very much, Chairperson, honorable members.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Lizindaba. As we close, I think Sia from the committee and Bonani, as well as the department, you might need to prepare this one. We'll have to come back to this and put a spotlight on these 3 programs, focus on them: rehabilitation, social integration, and community corrections. We would like to come back to that because the commission has started responding on some issues. We want a much more detailed discussion on that, so that you come back and say to us, this is rehabilitation as things stand. This is where we are with rehabilitation. We want to know what is the infrastructure around that, the issues of budget, as the DM is saying, and what are the bottlenecks for these kind of programs. Because when you begin to indicate that rehabilitation is not just correctional services matter, there are many other role players. We must be aware of that so that we play that role. Whether there's police as role players and court and all of that, so that we attack the entire thing. But also to come back where you indicate exactly, once you identify what are these kind of problems that are prohibiting this department from shining on its core mandate, what would you propose as the actions? Because in that way, it will help us, because corrections is a big elephant. We've got to eat it bit by bit to succeed on it. And I think that there's a lot of connection in those 3 programs, of rehabilitation, social integration, as well as community corrections, so that we see how much we all of us collectively attack that, and instead of just ticking the box on the same kind of issues. Not that others are not important, but this is becoming a key priority given the fact that it revolves around this being the mandate of the department. We'll come back to you about the details of what would need you to prepare, and then we can set time aside to deal with those. It's more work that we need to do than just malicious compliance to come in front of us, or we summoning you and so on. So it is all of us in this sector. So thank you very much. Thank you, members. I think at that point, I would like us to pause and adjourn our meeting until we meet next time. Thank you very much. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Dilizindaba.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chairperson.
Dilizindaba.